welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important issues appearing in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 9th April 2019. The news to be discussed has been presented on the screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So let's start our today's discussion. The first news appears on page number 8 as a lead article. It says, "Open up the Supreme Court." Now, in this article, the author says that the judiciary, confident of its place in a democratic republic, must not worry about public scrutiny of judicial appointments. So, we understand that this topic or this article highlights two important aspects with respect to Indian judiciary. They are judicial independence with respect to judicial accountability. And with respect to judicial independence as well as judicial accountability, the author has highlighted the selection of judges through the collegium system as well as the concept that judges should come under the purview of RTI Act of 2005. Now, from your prelims perspective, this topic forms a part of Indian polity and governance. From your mains point of view, this paper gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically under special features and significant provisions of the Indian Constitution, separation of powers between various organs of the state, as well as structure and organization and functioning of the executive as well as the judiciary. So in this article, let us understand the concept of judicial independence as well as judicial accountability from the backdrop of the collegium system of appointment as well as about judicial accountability specifically with respect to the RTI Act of 2005. Now, with respect to judicial accountability, this article says that one of the judgments of Delhi High Court said that the office of Chief Justice of India was public authority as per the RTI Act, that is Right to Information Act, and hence the office of Chief Justice of India came under the Right to Information Act. Now, as per the RTI Act, public authority means any authority or body or institution of self-government established or constituted by or under the Constitution, by any other law made by Parliament, by any other law made by state legislature, by notification issued or order made by the appropriate governments, and also includes any body owned, controlled, or substantially financed directly or indirectly by funds provided by the appropriate government, and also includes any non-government organization which is substantially financed either directly or indirectly by funds provided by the appropriate government. So this is what has been described under the RTI Act with respect to public authority. So it was on this note that the Delhi High Court held that the office of Chief Justice of India was public authority under the Right to Information Act. However, this matter is currently pending in the Supreme Court of India. However, the issues involved to be discussed in the Supreme Court have enlarged over a period of time as this judgment came around in the year of 2009. So the issues on which judgments would be given by the Supreme Court of India are: first, with respect to the earlier ruling of Delhi High Court that whether the office of Chief Justice of India can be said to be a public authority. Another point on which a judgment will come is with respect to disclosure of assets of judges. And also another point which will be discussed is whether the correspondence of the collegium comes under the purview of right to information. So with respect to judicial accountability, the author has also stated that any blanket ban or judicial exemption for judges from Right to Information Act will defeat the very purpose for which the act was legislated. That is, the author has argued for the concept of open justice, where the author has elaborated the concept of open justice, where he has said it refers to workings of courts as powerful organ of state which must be transparent and it also must be open to public scrutiny. So this is what the author has referred with respect to the concept of open justice. Now, with respect to judicial independence, the author has highlighted about the opaque process through which judges are appointed through the collegium system. Now, the collegium system is one where the Chief Justice of India and 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court recommends names for appointment and transfer of judges of higher judiciary, that is for high courts as well as Supreme Court. This collegium system also recommends names of senior lawyers who are practicing in the Supreme Court or the High Court for elevation as either the judge of high courts or as judge of Supreme Court of India. Now, this entire collegium system of appointment of judges evolved through three different judgments, which are collectively known as the three judges case. So, the whole issue with respect to appointment of judges was with respect to primacy of appointment, that is, whether the executive had the primacy or whether the judiciary had the primacy with respect to appointment of judges. So this issue that whether Chief Justice of India had any primacy with respect to his opinion became the backdrop with respect to these three judges cases. The first judges case was S.P. Gupta versus Union of India. In the very first judges case, the Supreme Court held that opinions of Chief Justice of India and the Chief Justice of respective high courts were merely consultative, and the power of appointment of judges resides solely and exclusively with the central government. Further, the Supreme Court also held that the central government could override the opinions of the judges. So basically, after the first judges case, the primacy with respect to judicial appointment lied with the executive. Now, the second judges case was heard by a 9-judge bench. The 9-judge constitution bench, while referring to the consultative process under Article 124 Clause 2, held that the government does not enjoy primacy or absolute discretion in matters of appointment of Supreme Court judges. So it was the second judge's case where the issue of primacy was transferred back to the judiciary. Further, the court also held that the provision for consultation with Chief Justice was introduced in the Constitution because the Chief Justice is best equipped to know and assess the worth and suitability of a candidate, and it was also necessary to eliminate political influence or political interference. Thus, it was with these aspects that the Supreme Court held that the government or the central government does not enjoy primacy or absolute discretion in matters of appointment of Supreme Court judges. So basically, the opinion of Chief Justice of India was considered over and above the opinion of the central government. And this ruling of second judge's case was further elaborated and articulated by another 9-judge bench ruling with respect to the third judge's case, which is also referred as re-presidential reference, which took place in the year 1999. Now, in this judgment, the Supreme Court, on a reference made by the President under Article 143, has now laid down the following proposition with respect to appointment of Supreme Court judges. First, in making recommendations, the Chief Justice of India shall consult 4 senior-most judges of Supreme Court. So, effectively, the collegium to make recommendations for appointment shall consist of the Chief Justice of India along with 4 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court, as declared by the Supreme Court in the third judge's case. Further, if a majority of collegium is against the appointment of a particular person, then he or she shall not be appointed. It also said that a High Court judge of outstanding merit can be appointed as the judge of the Supreme Court regardless of his or her standing in the seniority list. So these were some of the important provisions with respect to the working of the collegium. However, in this article, it is with respect to these working that the author has expressed concerns with respect to the opacity with which these judges have started working with respect to the collegium system. So it is in this respect that the author argues that this process of appointment through the collegium system must be transparent. And the Supreme Court cannot plead or argue in favor of opacity in the selection or appointment of process. That is, the Supreme Court must take steps to ensure transparency with respect to the process of appointment. So in this aspect, the author argues with respect to collegium system of appointment process that if the Supreme Court has institutionalized this process of appointment, which makes Supreme Court the final arbiter of judicial appointments, then the Supreme Court must ensure that this process with respect to collegium system must meet the standard of accountability in a democratic republic. Now, the author has also compared the process of appointments from India with respect to other countries, namely the United States and Kenya and South Africa, where the author has highlighted that transparency is integral to their process of judicial appointments. Now, in the United States of America, candidates for judicial appointments in the federal judiciary are subject to public confirmation hearings by the Senate. Now, the US Congress is split into two chambers, namely the US Senate and the US House of Representatives. Now, the US Senate is the upper chamber of the US Congress, whereas the US House of Representatives is the lower chamber. Now, in Kenya and South Africa, the interviews of the candidates with respect to judicial appointments are taken by the Judicial Appointment Commissions, and these interviews are broadcasted live. This entire process of live broadcast makes the process transparent for its citizens, and it also helps in building public faith in the impartial process, and thereby also enhances the faith of public in their judiciary. It is in this respect that this article further highlights that the collegium system over a period of years has immunized itself from any form of public scrutiny. As according to the author, there are certain processes which are done secretly, namely nomination process, deliberations, and reasons for elevation or non-elevation of certain judges, including senior lawyers practicing in high courts and Supreme Court. So in this aspect, the author mentions that this secrecy breeds an unhealthy atmosphere leading to trust deficit in the entire process of collegium system of appointments. And it is here where doubt emanates even with respect to executive interference in such an opaque appointment process. Now, the doubts raised by the author on the working process of collegium has also been raised because in December 2018, the collegium met to reconsider and recommend certain names for appointment as judges in the Supreme Court. However, the required consultation could not be undertaken because of a winter vacation which intervened. The problem arose when the newly constituted collegium decided to have a fresh look into the matter for consideration, and they recommended a different set of names which were earlier not proposed in the collegium meeting with respect to the December 2018 meeting. This sudden change of names and a complete opacity in the working process of the collegium dealt a serious blow to the reputation for impartiality and independence for the judiciary. So it is on these notes with respect to judicial independence and judicial accountability, the article concludes by saying that the court should be made more transparent and open in its way of working. Further, it also mentions that judiciary must subject itself to greater public scrutiny, especially with respect to the entire judicial appointments and its process, as transparency will always be more valued by the public as compared to the public scrutiny which the court will subject itself to. Now, this question was asked in the year 2017 in GS paper 2. The question was, critically examine the Supreme Court's judgment on National Judicial Appointments Commission Act 2014 with reference to appointment of judges of higher judiciary in India. Now, as per the National Judicial Appointments Commission Act of 2014, the NJAC consisted of the Chief Justice of India as ex officio chairperson of NJAC, two other senior judges of Supreme Court next to Chief Justice of India also as ex officio members, Union Law Minister, as well as two eminent persons who shall be selected by a committee comprising of Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and Leader of Opposition of the Lok Sabha. The purpose of NJAC Act was to override the collegium system. However, the 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court declared the NJAC Act as unconstitutional. The Supreme Court, while declaring the Act as unconstitutional, mentioned that the inclusion of Union Law Minister in the NJAC violated the principle of independence of judiciary as well as separation of power, both of which are the basic features of the Indian Constitution. The court also asserted that the better functioning of the judiciary shall not be secured at the expense of its judicial independence. Thus, as per the Supreme Court, under the NJAC Act, the executive sought to bring two eminent persons into the voting process having veto powers. So again, it was with respect to the executive interference in the appointment process that the Supreme Court declared the NJAC Act as unconstitutional. So considering all these aspects with respect to judicial independence and judicial accountability, this article becomes extremely important for us to understand from our UPSC perspective, both prelims as well as mains. Now, with respect to judicial accountability, the matter is currently sub judice And also whether the Chief Justice of India is a public authority under RTI is also sub judice. So let's wait for this important judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news appears in the editorial section on page number 8. It says, Maldivian wave. President Solly consolidates power with his MDP's victory in parliamentary polls. Now, the new government of Maldives under President Solly has reiterated Maldives' India First policy. President Solly has also reiterated that Maldives will now work with India on all issues and will also remain sensitive towards India's security as well as strategic concerns. Now, these editorials from your prelims becomes a part of current events of international importance. And in your mains, this topic gets covered under GS paper 2 under international relations, specifically under India and its neighborhood relations. Mr. Soli's predecessor, Abdullah Yameen, was close to China during the last 5 years. And Abdullah Yameen had propelled Maldives into Beijing's economic embrace, which has also been described by some analysts as the debt trap policy. According to some analysts, the surging influx of these Chinese investment under the Yameen administration may have caused Maldives' national debt to rise to nearly a quarter or one-fourth of its GDP, that is, gross domestic product. However, Mr. Soli's presidency has signaled a policy shift in favor of India. But there are still certain challenges which the Soli's government need to look into, especially with respect to India-Maldives relationship. Because of Beijing's economic embrace over the last 5 years, there are still certain challenges and concerns with respect to India-Maldives relationship. So let's go through some of these challenges as well as concerns. The first concern is with respect to enhanced Chinese presence in Maldives. Now, Maldives had signed its first country-specific foreign trade agreement with China in 2017, and this helped Maldives becoming China's second free trade agreement in South Asia after Pakistan. So, Maldives became the second country after Pakistan with which China signed a country-specific free trade agreement. There is another rising concern with respect to deepening of debt trap with respect to China, where more than 70% of Maldives' foreign debt is owed to China. So this is a very important concern, especially with respect to India-Maldives relationships, considering the growing influence and presence of China in Maldives. Another important concern is with respect to the land grab which is taking place by Chinese companies as well as individuals in Maldives. And as per some estimate, this land grab in Maldives by China is in excess of what East India Company had acquired during the colonial period in Maldives. So this increasingly acquisition of land by Chinese companies and individuals in Maldives is another pressing concern specifically with respect to India-Maldives relationship. And this land grab by China has also raised concern of Maldives being increasingly falling into an economic neo-colonial influence of China. So, it is on all these aspects that the new government of President Solly has affirmed that Maldives will scrap the free trade agreement with China and will also investigate the Chinese land grab in Maldives. So, we can say that enhanced Chinese presence in Maldives is one of the major pressing concerns with respect to India-Maldives relationship. Now, another concern is with respect to the policies of the government of Abdullah Yameen. As Abdullah Yameen had earlier declared an emergency in Maldives and has also halted the functioning of the Parliament of Maldives, which is also known as the Majlis, thereby arresting several opposition leaders. This move of Abdullah Yameen to arrest several opposition leaders as well as to declare emergency was opposed by India and several other countries. Another pressing concern was that Abdullah Yameen augmented relations with China without taking India into confidence, and this specially led to a decline in India-Maldives relations. Another growing concern is with respect to growing presence of ISIS or Daesh in Maldives, as the presence of these members from ISIS and Daesh has been growing, especially in the influence of Saudi philosophy of Wahhabis. Now, Maldives also has one of the highest per capita Daesh fighters. Also, due to continuous defeat of these Daesh or ISIS fighters, these fighters have been returning to Maldives and thereby pose a significant security threat to India, Sri Lanka, as well as Maldives. So these are some of the growing concerns with respect to India-Maldives relationships, especially with respect to growing radicalization, the hangover of policies followed by President Yamin, and the enhanced presence of China in Maldives. Now, despite these concerns, the editorial also highlights that India-Maldives relationships slowly are falling into place, as Maldives signed a 1.4 billion financial assistance package with India, and the two governments also agreed to exempt holders of diplomatic and official passports from visa requirements. Further, to enhance India-Maldives relationships, MOUs, that is Memorandum of Understandings, has also been signed on Indian grant aid for high-impact community development projects, including agreements on clean energy as well as regional maritime security. So the editorial ends on the note that so long as the new government in Maldives presses on with the urgent task of rebuilding and deepening the Maldives' democratic credentials, there is hope for political stability and economic development across the 1192 island archipelago and wider Indian Ocean region. The next article appears on page number 8. It says, Playing Politics Over the Golan Heights. US recognition of Israeli sovereignty is a challenge to the rules-based international order. Now this topic becomes a part of current events of international importance in your prelims, and your mains gets covered under international relations under GS paper 2. Now this article highlights that President Donald Trump of United States has announced that the US is going to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And this decision of United States violates various United Nations Security Council resolutions which consider Israeli occupation of Golan Heights as illegal. Now the decision of United States is based on the strategic location as well as security concerns of Golan Heights, specifically with respect to the state of Israel and also with respect to regional stability in the area. Now this topic of Golan Heights was also asked in the prelims of 2015. Hence on this note, you must know about the location of Golan Heights. As you can see in this map, Golan Heights borders Israel, Jordan, Syria and some parts of Lebanon. Now there is a growing relation between Syria and Iran, and this has led to security concerns for Israel. So in this backdrop, Golan Heights becomes a buffer area between Israel and usage of Syrian land, especially with respect to anti-Israeli warfare. So it is in this backdrop that the US has announced that it is going to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Now the question asked in 2015 was, the area known as Golan Heights sometimes appears in the news in the context of the events related to. The correct answer in this was B, that is Middle East. So in this backdrop, let us understand about the history, geographical overview and also concerns raised by the decision of United States to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Now it says that Israel seized Golan Heights from Syria during the Six-Day War of 1967 and has occupied the Golan Heights ever since. So the Golan Heights is occupied by Israel. The Syrian forces then attempted to take back Golan Heights from Israel during the Yom Kippur War of 1973. However, Syria lost in that war, and that loss led to the 1974 ceasefire agreement, under which Golan Heights came under the Israeli control. So after the 1974 ceasefire agreement, Golan Heights came under the control of Israel. A United Nations Security Council resolution declared imposition of Israel's law in occupied Syrian Golan Heights as null and void, and also declared that such an Israeli law in Golan Heights does not have any international legal effect. Now with respect to geographical overview, Golan Heights are fertile plateau and it overlooks both Israel and Syria, as you can see in this map. Further, it lies to the north and east of Sea of Galilee. So this is the Sea of Galilee, and it also borders the Jordan River as well as the Yarmouk River. Further, the inhabitants of Golan Heights are divided almost equally between Israeli Jewish settlers and Arabic-speaking Druze people of Syrian origin. The Druze follow a monotheistic Abrahamic religion related to Ismaili Shia Islam. So the Druze people follow Ismaili Shia Islam, and they also remain loyal to the regimes of current Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad and have also refused Israeli citizenship. Now, moving to the concerns, it says that a US decision violates various United Nations Security Council resolutions which consider Israeli occupation of Golan Heights as illegal. So, there are various UNSC resolutions which considers the occupation of Golan Heights by Israel as illegal. So, this decision of United States to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over Golan Heights is a pressing concern. Now, the Balfour Declaration led to the formation of Israeli state in 1948, and the Syrian Golan was part of the French post-World War I mandate, and thereby it was technically not covered by the Balfour Declaration. So basically, the Balfour Declaration created a state of Israel, and this area of Golan Heights does not fall under the Balfour Declaration. So basically, the Balfour Declaration recognizes the state of Israel, and Golan Heights is not recognized through the Balfour Declaration. So this decision of the US is now seeking to extend recognition of Israel's sovereignty to an area beyond Balfour Declaration. So this is the main concern with respect to the decision of United States. Now the European allies of US have also not supported this decision. Iran, Russia, Turkey, among others, have also remained critical of this decision of United States. Further, Saudi Arabia, due to its growing relation with Israel and its required support of US in Yemen, have so far remained diplomatic with respect to the decision of United States. Now, this decision of US does not directly impact India. Even Indian soldiers are part of United Nations peacekeeping force in Golan Heights. So in this news, you must know about the location of Golan Heights and also the countries which borders the Golan Heights. As you can see, a question has been asked in the year 2015 in your prelims examination. The next news appears on page number 7. It says IIT Madras tops center's higher educational rankings, and these educational rankings have been published by the National Institutional Ranking Framework under the Ministry of Human Resource and Development. Now this topic in your prelims examination gets covered under social development as well as social sector initiatives, and in your mains it gets covered under GS paper 2 under issues relating to education. So in this news analysis, let us learn certain basic facts with respect to National Institutional Ranking Framework. Now, National Institution Ranking Framework was launched by the Ministry of Human Resource and Development in the year 2015. This framework outlines a methodology to rank institutions across India, and these rankings are done basically on various parameters which broadly cover teaching and learning resources, research and professional practices, graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and perception. So these becomes extremely important points to remember for your upcoming prelims examination, specifically with respect to National Institution Ranking Framework. As you can see, university, college, and engineering and management pharmacy are ranked on various metrics such as teaching, learning and resources, research and professional practice, graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and perception. And each of these parameters are assigned certain percentage. For example, with respect to university, teaching, learning and resources have been assigned 30%, whereas research and professional practice again 30%, graduation outcomes 20%, outreach and inclusivity 10%, and perception 10%. So let us also know certain important ingredients further with respect to these broad parameters. So the parameters for teaching, learning and resources include student strength including doctoral students, faculty-student ratio with emphasis on permanent faculty, combined metric for faculty with PhD or equivalent as well as having experience. Further, total budgets and its utilization for a particular university. With respect to graduation outcomes, the parameters include combined percentage for placement, higher studies and entrepreneurship. Metric for university examination, median salary, metric for graduating students admitted into top universities, and metric for number of PhD students graduated. So these are some of the important criteria on which a university is ranked by the NIRF. Now, with respect to research and professional practice, they take into account combined metric for publications, combined metric for quality of publications, IPR and patents filed, published, granted, and licensed, and footprint of projects and professional practice, and also executive development programs. With respect to outreach and inclusivity, the various points mentioned are percent students from other states or countries, having a regional diversity, percentage of women, economically and socially challenged students, and facilities for physically challenged students. Now, on perception, it talks about peer perception, where it says about employers and research investors, academics, public perception, and competitiveness. So, these are the points on which universities are ranked by NIRF. Now, on the overall ranking, these are the top 10 universities of India. First being Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, which has also been highlighted in the newspaper, followed by Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Kanpur, JNU, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, IIT Guwahati, and Banaras Hindu University. Thus, in this news analysis, you must remember certain basic facts with respect to NIRF, that it was launched by Ministry of Human Resource and Development in the year 2015, and this framework outlines a methodology to rank institutions across the country. And the various parameters on which institutions are ranked are teaching, learning and resources, research and professional practices, graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and perception. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news appears on page number 7. It says, Army gets Dhanush Artillery guns. And this Dhanush Artillery guns is the indigenously upgraded version of Bofor's gun procured in 1980s. Now, this topic with respect to Dhanush Artillery guns gets covered under General Science in your prelims examination. Now, you must remember certain basic facts with respect to Dhanush Artillery gun. It says that Dhanush is indigenously upgraded gun of the Swedish Bofor's gun procured in the year 1980s. The Dhanush artillery gun has a range of 36 km and has also demonstrated a range with respect to 38 km with specialized ammunition. Another important aspect is that Dhanush artillery gun is compatible with all NATO 155 mm ammunition systems. Dhanush has also been electronically upgraded to enhance firing accuracies, laying speeds of existing gun, and also to provide compatibility with different kinds of ammunitions. The Indian Army is set to acquire 114 such Dhanush artillery guns over a period of 4 years. Now, after our discussion, these forms your practice question for the day. What you can do is to take a pause of 5 seconds. First, it says, which of the following can be said to be public authority as per the Right to Information Act of 2005? The options are, first, an institution constituted under the Constitution. Second, an institution constituted by an Act of Parliament. Third, any body constituted by state legislature. So all these three statements given are correct with respect to public authority. So in this aspect, the correct answer is D, that is 1, 2 and 3. The second question says, consider the following statements. First, National Judicial Appointments Commission Act of 2014 has been declared unconstitutional by Supreme Court of India. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, collegium system comprises of Chief Justice of India only. No, the statement is incorrect as it comprises of Chief Justice of India and 4 senior most judges of Supreme Court. Hence, the second statement is incorrect. So in this, the correct answer is A, that is 1 only. Now these are your practice questions number 3 and practice question number 4. What you can do is to take a pause of 5 seconds. Which of the following countries borders Jordan? Options are Israel, Syria, Saudi Arabia and Iran. In this, Iran does not border Jordan, whereas Israel, Syria and Saudi Arabia borders Jordan. So in this, the correct answer is 1, 2 and 3. So here B becomes our correct answer. Question number 4 says, Consider the following statements. Arabic speaking Druze people are related to Sunni sect of Islam. No, we have seen that the Arabic speaking Druze people who resides in Golan Heights are Shia sect of Islam. Second, inhabitants of Golan Heights are divided between Israeli Jewish settlers and Arabic speaking Druze people of Syrian origin. Yes, the statement is correct. So, in this particular question, the correct answer is B, that is 2 only. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Now, today we have released the Prelims Compass magazine for government schemes on Amazon website. You can go and have a look. The description also contains the link for the same. With this, let's move on to the question for the day.